What's going on, everyone? This is FFanCrazy back with week number 6 of the Pokemon Speedruns Draft League. This week I am doing my team builder here for my week 6 matchup against the New England Mudkips and Coach Ranger Squid. So real quick league upkeep, just a couple things. Obviously I managed to win my game last week against Sunrakasha, and a little bit of a lopsided affair, mostly due to a bad prediction on his part on losing his Jirachi really early, which was one of his best defensive pivots. Overall, doing relatively well this year. I think I'm in the top 5 in power rankings, and I am second in my division because Gino is a masterclass trainer. So we are still chasing, but we're only one game back, and we're within striking distance and very likely to make the playoffs. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go right into our matchup this week against Ranger Squid's team. This is actually my second time recording this because I had some audio issues on the first recording, so we're going to go a little faster this time as well. So his team, as you see up at the top, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Z Crystal team first. Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black's a very, very scary sort of a mixed attacker. It gets access to really powerful ice moves. As a Z Crystal user, it gets access to both a physical and special option for Sub-Zero Slammer Z Ice. And its physical one is a very, very high base power. It's I forget the name of the move, but it's a charge move, so it's not frequently used, but with the Z Crystal, obviously, you don't have to worry about the charge move, and it gets a really high base power on the attack. Also gets to run, I'm losing all my names of moves, but it gets access to a physical electric move, and then it gets access to Ice Beam, Roost, gets access to Toxic. These are common moves, Hidden Power Fire. So it's often run as sort of like almost like a mixed attacker. I think it's Plasma Bolt is the attack that it gets. It's a physical electric move. So yeah, relatively good coverage. Also things like Draco Meteor. There's a chance he runs at Choice Scarf this week, or Z, or Life Orb. Choice Scarf would be to try to counter Charizard, but luckily Charizard's not a really big focus this week for me. So I could see like Choice Scarf, Draco Meteors, but I'm not really super reliant on Charizard, and I think I would, if he brings it in against Charizard, I'm going to suspect something. As far as like if he brings it in after something dies, I'm going to be able to sniff that one out, I think. So overall, not super worried about Choice Scarf, but it is an option for him. His other Z Crystal user is Zeraora. Zeraora is a really, really, really fast, mostly physical attacker. It's like base 143 speed or something absurd. It also gets to run mixed options, so it gets access to Plasma Fist, a very powerful physical electric move. Gets access to Superpower. It gets access to relatively good coverage moves. It gets Fire Punch. It gets Hidden Power Ice. It gets access to Grass Knot for certain matchups. So he could run it as like a Life Orb mix set, or he could run it as like a physical Z Crystal user. He sometimes will run things like Z Giga Impact, or Z Bounce, as he showed in week 1, which I think was really cool tech. So it gets a lot of cool options. I think it's a very likely bring this week, but I don't know 100% for certain if he'll have it. But if he does, I do have a plan for it. I'm actually the most worried about him having like a mix set with Hidden Power Ice, but we'll talk about what my plan is for that. Next thing we're going to look at is his Rain package. Pretty obvious. He has Politoed, which is a Drizzle user, to enable his Mega Swampert. Mega Swampert, very, very fast Swift Swimmer. Well, when it's Swift Swimming, it's very fast. Very good physical attacker, although you can run it special. Gets access to Superpower, Ice Punch, gets access to Stone Edge, I believe, Stealth Rock, Waterfall, Earthquake. It can run Scald. You can also run it as a more defensive mon, more like a traditional Swampert, but I actually don't think it's as good as regular Swampert in that role because it loses access to leftovers because of the Mega Stone. And not having any reliable form of recovery means that it's it gets worn down over time. So I don't think it's super likely he brings that Swampert set. I just think he's far more likely to run a pretty traditional attacking set. Politoed, obviously we talked about Drizzle, very important for his Swampert, although like I said, Swampert is relatively fine without it, especially if it goes for a little bit more of a bulkier set. Politoed obviously is not the most effective mon by itself, but it can be run as a really good defensive pivot. It can be run especially or physically bulky. He's done some cool things with it, like he's run a Perish Trapping Whirlpool set. Gets access to Toxic, Refresh, Resto Chesto, although most of the time it's going to want to be holding Damp Rock to extend the length of the rain and drizzle. So I think that's his most likely option for the item, but he could also run it Choice Specs. I've seen Choice Scarf variants that are a little bit older, but Choice Scarf I don't think has a great matchup against me this week. I fully expect Ice coverage like Ice Beam, Toxic, Scald. He can also run Hydro Pump if he's offensive, Hidden Power Grass for different options on my team like Seismitoad. So he could run it with that type of set as well. Its most reliable recovery is like Protect Leftovers or Resto Chesto, neither of which allows him to run Damp Rock. So it's going to be whittled down over time if he doesn't have those options on him. Also gets access to Encore, which is a super cool move. I don't know how much viability it has this week, but overall it's like a very cool move that it gets access to. If he thinks I'm like, he might bring it if he thinks I'm like Sword, Sand, Scissor, for example. But yeah, relatively good, versatile water Pokemon, considering that it's mostly there for Drizzle. And doesn't have the greatest stats, but it has a lot of different like ways you can run it. Next Pokemon on the block is Bisharp. Bisharp is incredibly good Pursuit Trapper. It's a good Steel type, obviously. Pursuit, really good. It gets access to Sucker Punch, Pursuit. It gets access to Knock Off, Iron Head. I think it gets Brick Break, Swords Dance. It can also be run as an Assault Vest variant, which is what I actually expect him to bring this week. But also you be running it as a more offensive Swords Dance variant. So there's quite a few options there with Bisharp. The main thing about Bisharp is it gets access to Defiant, which means that any sort of inadvertent stat lowering will all of a sudden raise his stats. So for example, I have 2 Intimidate options on my team. So Intimidate will actually raise his attack stat. Defog all of a sudden gives him a free Swords Dance. So Defiant is an incredibly scary ability. In testing, I've actually hit it with an Earth Power and got a special defense drop, and all of a sudden he had a free Swords Dance and things were a lot harder. So overall, I do expect him to bring it mostly for my Celebi, and also for things like Neolego it's very good against, but I do have a plan for it. But yeah, very scary mon. Having access to priority Sucker Punch with that much options for boosting or Defiant is really scary. Next on his team, one of the most impactful defensive Pokemon of all time is Skarmory. Skarmory is a really good defensive pivot. You can run it more specially defensive, but it's primarily physical wall. Gets access to Roost for recovery, gets access to Brave Bird and Iron Head for stab options against Pokemon that it hits super effectively. Gets Toxic, gets Spikes, gets Whirlwind, gets Stealth Rock. So it has a lot of really good defensive options in those fronts. Obviously, it's going to be most commonly running Leftovers. So there's a lot of cool things that Skarmory does, but most of them are just going to be defensive options. I do expect him to bring Skarmory. Skarmory, I think, just has a relatively good matchup, but it has a very good lead option because of the fact that it gets both Spikes and Rocks. So it also gets Defog. So Defog is also an option, although Defog plus Spikes is not the greatest together, but sometimes your necessity dictates that you need both. Yeah, so Skarmory, a really good option. So I do think that those 6 first Pokemon are the ones I'm most likely to see him bring, but other options on his team include Blaziken, which is non-Speed Boost Blaziken. Speed Boost is banned, so it's going to be Blaziken. Because of lack of Speed Boost, it doesn't have great speed tier. It's only base 80 speed, but it is a relatively good mixed attacker. It's sort of like bad Infernape. Basically, it's slow Infernape, but it gets really good move options. It gets Superpower, it gets Focus Blast, it gets Fire Blast, it gets, I think it gets Flame Charge and Blaze. Does it get access to... I can't remember all the moves it gets. I know it has a good physical attacking option, but I cannot remember for the life of me what the moves are that it gets. But yeah, it does get Flare Blitz. That was what I was wondering about. It also gets access to Stone Edge and Knock Off, which are both really good. And Swords Dance and Agility. So a lot of different options there. I think it even gets Defog, which is pretty cool. So that is an option against my team. He also has Espeon. Espeon's one of his faster mons at 110. The only other Pokemon on his team that's anywhere close is Zeraora obviously outstrips it by a lot, and then past that, most of his speed tiers are lower than 100, which is going to be important for this matchup. Espeon gets access to, it's a relatively good special attacker. It's also like an okay option for like support options. It has like Wish and Baton Pass, although we can't pass more than one stat, I don't think. No, you can pass more than one stat. You can't pass speed. It gets access to recovery with Morning Sun, although Morning Sun is not the greatest in rain. And then it can be run as a Calm Mind variant, it can be run as Choice Specs, it can be run as like a support set. So it has a lot of really good options there, and Magic Bounce is one of the best abilities in the game, bouncing back things like Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, Rocks, Toxic Spikes, all these kind of things. So there's a good chance he does bring Espeon. Espeon's one of the ones he could slot in some of the slots on his team, and it wouldn't be that out of place. So overall, I think Espeon has some good options. Other mons on his team that he could bring, I think Gourgeist is like an okay bring. It kind of walls things like Virizion on my team and Celebi to a certain extent, but it doesn't have as great matchups against other mons on my team. So like Neolego beats it up, or most Neolego beat it up, and then like Charizard obviously. His other mons are Slurpluff. Slurpluff gets two kind of main modes. It has like a weird support set with Sticky Web, and I think it gets Wish. And I think it might even get Healing Bell, but it's also really slow and not super bulky. Its other mode is Belly Drum, which it gets Unburdened Belly Drum with a Pinch Berry to allow it to have really, really ridiculous speeds and plus six attack, but I have options to slow it down on my team like Neolego and Bullet Punch on Scissor, so I don't know that he can bring it. Lastly, he has Quillfish, which is a good lead option with like Spikes and Toxic Spikes. It also gets access to Taunt, and it is a Swift Swimmer, but I don't know how good of an option it is this week because it doesn't really threaten as many things on my team as you would hope it would, in my opinion. Although it's got okay matchups against things like Virizion and Celebi. It's I think too low impact in this week, so I don't expect them to bring it. So that's his team. Let's talk quickly about my team next. So first Pokemon I wanted to talk about on my team was Neolego. I think it's going to be my, not really a dedicated lead, but it's like the most likely lead, unless he brings like a lot of Pokemon I don't expect. Because against everything that isn't Espeon as a lead, like obviously like oddball leads, like for example, it's not that good of a lead against his Bisharp, but like Bisharp isn't the most likely lead. So against everything else, like against everything except Espeon, it's a really good lead. Like it beats up Swampert, it beats up Politoed, it beats up Skarmory, and the cool thing is I can run a little bit of a gambit if he leads Skarmory. Like I two-shot it with Power Gem and T-Bolt, so or even 2 Power Gems if he's not specially bulky, which means that I can then go Power Gem on turn 1 rather than being forced to T-Bolt, and then that, if he decides to like switch out predicting the T-Bolt into say Swampert or Zeraora to try to tank the T-Bolt, well then all of a sudden he just takes a Power Gem to the face, especially Zeraora does not want to take that and get low on health early in the game. Then the other cool thing is that if he brings Swampert in and the rain isn't up, well, Grass Knot just OHKOs it. And then Politoed, if he brings it in as a lead, can match up okay against me because I kind of have to like sacrifice myself to two-shot it, but Thunderbolt does enough work against it that it's pretty good. I didn't ring Thunder because in testing I needed to like Thunder dry a lot without any rain, and it just didn't work out as well, so I just put T-Bolt on there. But Life Orb helps out with the damage output. Speed is just not enough speed to outspeed Kyurem Black, which I don't OHKO, but I do quite a bit of damage to. And so I think it's a roll to OHKO if I'm not mistaken. But overall, yeah, let's see here. Power Gem. Life Orb Power Gem is... No, Life Orb Power Gem isn't OHKO against non-bulky Kyurem Black. So, that is a pretty big one. And I do outspeed it. So, that was what the Life Orb was there before, mostly. Overall, I'm pretty excited about this lead option. Next thing I want to talk about on the team is Celebi. Celebi is, I feel like, being pigeonholed every week into this like really defensive grass type to beat up on the bulky waters, and there's a lot of Pokemon that have been 4 times weak to grass that are really offensive, so this week is very similar with Mega Swampert. Overall, this is basically my primary check to Mega Swampert. Even against like max attack adamant, I don't take almost anything. Like Ice Punch does less than like 40%. So it's like 35 on average or something ridiculous like that. So my plan is I need to keep Celebi's health very high, because if he's predicting, especially if he's predicting my switch-ins with Ice Punches, like I need to be able to keep my health high overall, so that's why I ran Recover. Expert Belt seems really out of place on this set, but it was needed to secure a 2-hit KO on Assault Vest Bisharp, which is really important because if I do have high enough health, like I already OHKO Swampert with or without the Expert Belt and this investment, but the extra investment helps me 2-shot Bisharp, and it also gives me a better Politoed like range. Like I think it allows me to hit it a little bit harder. It doesn't make it a 1-shot option, but it is a 2-shot still, and it does more damage to like Zeraora, for example. So, but this set is sort of a bait for Bisharp. Like, if I have to heal, like Recover, I'm free to do that because I'm not afraid of being Pursuit trapped because I have Baton Pass. This is the second time I've run Baton Pass to get out of Pursuit. I think there's a chance he noticed that I'm going to do that again, but because I think he also, like, there was some other situation where Baton Pass being out of Pursuit came up, so I think he's going to be at least be on his radar, but it doesn't really change my plan. Like the Baton Pass is really good. 16 EVs allows me to outspeed max speed Adamant Bisharp. I don't think that's enough speed to outspeed Jolly, but that wasn't as big of a concern to me. And then this allows me to, like, if I don't need to, I can hit Earth Power on the switch in and do over half to even Assault Vest variants. And then, then he's kind of forced into like, oh, do I Sucker Punch? And I can still just Baton Pass out. So yeah, overall this was really good. The speed was because in testing I was like, I didn't have the speed, so I was like getting outsped by the stupid Bisharp and then getting like knockoffed instead of pursuited, and that was just not good. So I ended up going for the extra speed to outspeed that. Defense is for Swampert and just overall sustainability. Special attack is, as mentioned, plus the Expert Belt to be able to get that range on the 2-shot. But yeah, this is going to lead into my next option, which is Virizion. So this week I picked up Virizion as a free agent, which has been garnering me a little bit of criticism. It's a little bit narrow because I kind of picked it up as a short-term option this week, especially because Spiritomb in that slot, like previously it was Raichu, and then Raichu I thought it was going to bring a couple weeks and then didn't. And then same thing happened for Spiritomb. Like Spiritomb, like there was a couple weeks I thought I would bring it, and then I ended up not bringing it. So this week I knew that Virizion was going to be good because his team is really weak to both fighting and grass. So I just decided to go for it. This Virizion set, I think I'm actually very satisfied with. Basically, Close Combat and Leaf Blade are the only attacking options that matter this week because all my other coverage moves do absolutely nothing. And you have very limited coverage options when it comes to Virizion. You have like Zen Headbutt, Stone Edge, and that's about it. Like, not much else. And so because you're so limited on, like, you just have very bad like coverage and even utility move options. So Substitute came about because in testing, it was like a very free switch into Skarmory, but this allows me to stay in on Skarmory and 2-shot it. If it's got any amount of previous damage, I can 2-shot it pretty reliably with Close Combat and stay alive. And it also like alleviates some prediction. Like, for example, if Rain's up, but I think he's like 50-50 to switch in Skarmory or Swampert, then I can just Substitute and I don't even have to worry about being outsped if he sacrifices something. It also alleviates like getting Sucker Punched at low health. So it's a pretty good option with Substitute, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. Synthesis is weird because like basically I was like, I have Life Orb, and I absolutely need Life Orb because it makes it a not range on No Bulk Kyurem Black. And because I couldn't run Expert Belt or something similar to that, I absolutely felt obligated to run a healing move. But the problem is that Synthesis is awful in the rain. I think it's 25%. But it was just like, I even had Sunny Day in this set before I had Substitute, and I had Swords Dance, and neither one didn't really do that much. Sunny Day just to stop the rain, and it just didn't do enough, so I ended up just going for this. The cool thing about this is if my plan with Baton Pass Selby goes through and I get hit with a weak pursuit, I get a justified boost. And if I have a justified boost and a substitute, things like Skarmory all of a sudden are not a great switch in, because I can actually do a lot of damage to them all of a sudden. So Virizian's not planning on sticking around long. Like if I can get a kill with it and then save it to revenge kill Swampert outside of Rain or Politoed, I'll be pretty happy. And that's kind of my goal with it this week. Next mon on the team I want to talk about is Scizor. This Scizor set I literally made up right before I did the previous team builder I'm redoing. I originally had this really bad like Life Orb, Max Attack, Adamant, Max HP set that was like the same set as this, but it had Superpower over U-turn. And Superpower, I felt, especially before I had Virizion, I felt I needed Superpower for Bisharp, and it just didn't really feel that good because I couldn't fit Defog on anyone else this week, and you'll see why when I get to my Landorus set. And then I felt like if I'm defogging, I need Roost to be able to heal off damage, but like Life Orb and my bulk wasn't high enough. So this set allows me to, with Okaberry, to tank Hidden Power Fires from Kyurem, Fire Punches from Zeraora, Hidden Powers from Espeon pretty reliably. Like it does nothing to Blaziken, but like whatever. Not really worried about that as much. And so especially in the rain, like in the rain I take almost nothing, but I can't rely on the rain being up because like there's a good chance that Scizor will be coming in around the time that rain is down. Defog, I just felt obligated to run it because there's some situations where I'm going to need to switch Charizard in as a defensive pivot, believe it or not, this week, and with Stealth Rocks that just made that really difficult. So I felt like I had to run Defog, and I couldn't fit it on Landorus, so Scizor ended up being it. I almost ran Hoopa in this slot, but I just couldn't justify not having Defog, and this ended up being Necessary Evil. Plus, Bullet Punch is pretty good, although with this, like, attack investment, I two-shot Kyurem Black with Bullet Punch 100% of the time, but it's not great. I don't have a lot of offensive power with this set, which I'm normally used to with my Scizor set, so this will be a new experience. We'll see if the set pans out better than the bad Life Orb, like, not fully invested into attacking set I had before. U-turn was because I needed to be able to pivot out of like Scizor, basically. Yeah, that's that. So the next two sets, Mega Charizard X this week is a lot more of like a defensive pivot support set, despite having really, still running, Jolly, Max Attack, because, Charizard just absolutely chunks things with Flare Blitz and Dragon Claw. But I'm running Will-O-Wisp, so I can try to bait in some Swamperts, and it's also pretty good against, like, Bisharp, like, because, like, Bisharp, if he might stand to try to Sucker Punch me, thinking that, like, oh, you're just gonna, like, attack me, so I'm gonna Sucker Punch you, and then I can just Will-O-Wisp it and Roost, and then it just can't, like, I just get this heal up to full, which is really helpful, like, because, like, I can do that in an attempt to, like, heal off Stealth Rock damage more reliably, so I think it was a pretty good option. I really like Will-O-Wisp against Swampert this week, because it really neuters it quite a bit, and it's also pretty good against, like, Zeraora, for example. So, yeah, overall, this set is kind of a more, like, defensive option, but outside of Rain, all of a sudden, Swampert's getting two-shot by Dragon Claw. Kyurem is getting one-shot most of the time with Dragon Claw. Flare Blitz outside of the rain is a lot better, and that's the main reason I didn't, like, there was no sense in running a Dragon Dance set this week because if Mega Swampert in the rain just absolutely destroys me, and he also might run, like, Choice Scarf Kyurem to be able to beat me. It doesn't beat Dragon Dance versions, but, like, he has, like, options to be able to beat that, so I didn't feel like Dragon Dance did much this week, so I just went for this kind of weird Will-O-Wisp bead, like, offensive enough, but, like, has enough bulk to switch into some things. So yeah, overall, not going to be the primary sweeping focus this week. It's going to be more of a cleaner in situations where things are weak. Last mon on the team and the set I'm pretty excited about is this Landorus set. So I would be more excited about this set if I wasn't so worried all of a sudden about Hidden Power Ice Zeraora. Because of Hidden Power Ice Zeraora or like Toxic Skarmory, which are like the two mons that this can set up on, or Whirlwind Skarmory, like those are the three things, like those two variants of Skarmory and that variant of Zeraora make setting up a lot more like difficult, but this set has really good options. So I was thinking about like Landorus this week, and I was like, I don't really know what Landorus set I want to run, but I feel like I need it for like Zeraora, and I feel like I need it for Bisharp to an extent, even though the Intimidate's obviously a little bit bad there, but it just does enough to threaten it out that it's not as big of a deal. and I couldn't figure out a good set. Like, I was gonna run Scarf again, but Scarf's kind of awkward because you get outsped by a lot of random things, despite having the choice Scarf. But you need some amount of speed because otherwise you just get absolutely destroyed by Kieran Black, because it's 4 base speed higher than you. So I was like, man, Rock Polish is really good against Kieran Black, because if he switches in Kieran Black and then all of a sudden I can just Z superpower right in the face, that's huge. And then Swords Dance, because there's like situations where, like, if Kieran's dead, basically if his like Pokemon that outspeed me are dead and I get a Swords Dance up, all of a sudden I'm like killing Swamperts and Politoads, and Z fighting +2 does a ton of damage to Skarmory. Like, all of a sudden he's in trouble. And then in other situations, the Rock Polish, like, I 2-hit KO Swampert with Earthquake. Like, that's crazy. Z Superpower is a really good option because, like, it does a lot of damage to Kyurem, it does a lot of damage to Politoad, it does a lot of damage to Skarmory. So, like, those are the main 3 mons that was for. Yeah, I'm really happy with this set. I'm hoping I get to clean with it. The special defense investment is for Hidden Power Ice Zeraora, because I'm just not bulky enough to tank that. This allows me to live 100% of the time, and also live like 30, like I live like 70% of the time or so against Stealth Rock plus Hidden Power Ice, or like some residual damage. Like if I take like a very light hit and then I get hit with the Hidden Power Ice, I can still live a lot of the time. So this set I'm pretty happy with. I really wish I think he's gonna run Hidden Power Ice, and it's gonna make this set a lot worse. But if he does, at least I know I live and I can kill it. I can either go for a Rock Polish or just hit it with Earthquake right off the bat. You can also be running like Shucka Berry. Like, there's all sorts of weird stuff. Like Life Orb Zeraora is with Ice. Hidden Power Ice is like a bit of a liability, but I think the special defense investment is gonna come in handy potentially. But yeah, this is the team. I'm actually really happy with this team. I think it's a pretty good team. And I like everyone on this team except for Scissor. I think Scissor's gonna suck, but overall I'm pretty excited about the rest of it. I think that the Virizion with Justified and the bait with Celebi Baton Pass is gonna be pretty good. And yeah, I'm really excited for this week, and hopefully I can keep the win streak up. Thanks for watching, everyone, and peace out!